My name is Clara Montes. My phone rang at 12:17 in the morning. I answered, terrified something had happened to my grandchildren, but my daughter Daniela's voice left me completely frozen. Mum, why are you on every news channel? A chill ran through my entire body. I turned toward the television still glowing in the living room. There I was, on screen, my face dusted with snow, a bandage wrapped around my hand, a paramedic helping me walk, while strangers embraced me from every side. Beneath the image, words I never imagined I would see about myself. The woman who saved lives during the Christmas storm. I couldn't speak. Daniela asked again, Mum, why didn't you tell me where you were? I closed my eyes, because only hours earlier, she herself had told me there was no longer a place for me. That moment changed my life forever. But the real story had begun long before, 3 days before Christmas Eve. I lived alone in a small apartment on the south side of the city. After my divorce, I learned to make peace with silence. I brewed coffee for one, ate dinner in front of the news, and every night arranged the same blanket over the same worn armchair. It wasn't a bad life, just a painfully quiet one. The only light in my weeks came from Daniela and my 2 grandchildren, and that's why I still celebrated every Christmas with the same hope I always had. That afternoon, I was wrapping presents when my phone rang. Seeing Daniela's name, I smiled without thinking. I answered right away. Hi, sweetheart. How are the kids? She answered, but her voice was different, too serious. Mothers learn to recognize that kind of silence before the words even come. I set the wrapping paper down on the table. My stomach tightened. I asked if everything was all right. She hesitated for several long seconds. When she finally spoke, I understood this call wasn't an invitation to dinner. It was notice that the place I had held my entire life was being taken from me. And the worst part was, I still didn't know who had taken it. I took a deep breath before asking again. What's going on, Daniela? I heard her exhale slowly. This year, Christmas dinner is going to be at Ivan's house. Her answer didn't surprise me. Ivan had been my ex-husband's partner for several years. He was never cruel or aggressive. The problem was something else entirely. He always needed to be the center of attention. If someone told a story, his was better. If someone received praise, he found a way to turn the spotlight back on himself. Still, I had endured a great deal for one simple reason. I never wanted my daughter to feel forced to choose between her father and her mother. I smiled calmly. Perfect. What time should I come? Silence again, longer this time. I felt my heart begin to race. Then came words I never thought I'd hear. Mum, maybe it's better if you don't come this year. I said nothing. Her voice broke as she continued. We want Ivan to really feel like part of the family. It's just this one Christmas. Everything will go back to normal after. I looked at the small tree by the window. Ornaments Daniela had made as a little girl still hung from its branches. Ornaments I had kept for over 20 years. She had forgotten those memories. I never could. Are you still there, Mum? I swallowed hard before answering. Yes, I'm here. It's nothing personal. I hope you understand. Strangely, that was the sentence that hurt the most, because there was no version of this that wasn't personal. Still, I chose to protect her one more time. Of course I understand. Don't worry. We talked a few more minutes about nothing important. The kids, the weather, dinner plans. Then we hung up. The house fell back into complete silence. I sat in front of that tree for a long time. I didn't cry. I wasn't even angry. I just felt an exhaustion that had been building inside me for years. The next morning I went shopping. I bought a puzzle for Matteo, a paint set for Lucia, and for Daniela, something entirely different, a photo album. For 2 full nights, I gathered memories she had probably long forgotten. Every photograph told a piece of our life together. Without realizing it, I was preparing something far more meaningful than a gift. I was placing in her hands one last chance to remember who had stood beside her since the very beginning. Christmas morning broke grey and cold. I woke before my alarm, not because I'd slept enough, but because I simply couldn't sleep anymore. I made coffee and watched through the window as snow began covering the streets. For several minutes, I stared at my phone. Part of me still hoped for a message from Daniela. Maybe she'd changed her mind. Maybe my grandchildren had asked for me. Maybe there was still a seat for me at that table. The phone never rang. Around noon, I loaded the gifts into my car, along with the photo album. I didn't write a letter. I didn't want to make her feel guilty. I only wanted, one more time, to be her mother. When I arrived at Daniela's house, I sat parked outside for several minutes. Through the window, I could see the towering Christmas tree. I heard laughter, the children running back and forth. For one brief moment, I almost got out and knocked, but her words came back to me. "It's better if you don't come this year." I took a deep breath, carried the gifts to the door, set them down carefully, and placed the album on top. Then I walked back to my car without looking back. The drive home felt endless. Once inside, I tried losing myself in an old movie. It didn't work. I made something to eat. I wasn't hungry either. When night fell, I got a message from the community shelter where I'd volunteered for years. The storm was worsening. They needed help. I said I'd be there in a few minutes. For nearly 3 hours, we handed out hot coffee, blankets, and food to people with nowhere else to go that night. Whole families searching for shelter. Elderly men and women shivering in the cold. Children clinging to their parents for warmth. No one asked who anyone else was. Everyone was simply trying to help. Just after 10 o'clock, I decided to head home. The snow was falling harder now. I was driving slowly when I saw emergency lights along the roadside. A bus had gone off the road. Without a second thought, I pulled over and called emergency services. I ran toward the vehicle. Inside were several elderly passengers, terrified. Some were crying, others wouldn't move. In that instant, I understood this Christmas was far from over. And without knowing it, I was about to make a decision that would put my name in front of the entire country by morning. The wind howled so fiercely I could barely keep my eyes open. Still, I pushed forward toward the bus. The driver was trying to calm the passengers, but the fear on their faces was unmistakable. I climbed the steps and took a breath. Everything is going to be okay. Help is coming. Those few words shifted the entire atmosphere. The screaming stopped. People started listening. As I checked for serious injuries, I noticed something far more alarming than the crash itself. A utility pole leaning dangerously, live wires hanging just feet from the bus. I told everyone not to step off until emergency crews arrived. No one argued. Minutes later, the first firefighters and ambulances appeared. Together, we carefully began evacuating the passengers. I held the hand of an elderly woman who could barely stand, shaking from the cold. I wrapped her in a blanket from my car and stayed by her side until she was safe. As I turned to help someone else, my foot slipped on the ice. I went down hard, a sharp pain tearing through my knee, a deep cut opening across my hand. A paramedic rushed over to help me up, asking if I needed to go to the hospital. I told him we'd finish helping the others first. Only once the last passenger was safe did I let them tend to my injuries. As they cleaned the cut on my hand, a reporter approached with a camera and asked a few quick questions. I answered without thinking much of it. All I wanted was to go home. I had no idea those few seconds of footage would be playing on every news station within hours. It was well past midnight when I finally reached my apartment. Everything was just as quiet as I'd left it. I sat down, turned on the television just for the noise, and exhaustion took over almost instantly. I closed my eyes for what felt like only a moment. Then my phone began buzzing over and over. Messages, missed calls, notifications flooding in without end. My first thought was that something had happened to my grandchildren. Then Daniela's name appeared on the screen. I answered immediately. I could hear her breathing hard, and her first question stopped my heart cold. "Mom, why are you all over the news?" For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. I looked at the television. There I was, covered in snow, helping passengers off that bus, paramedics working around me, the footage playing on a loop. "Mom, I just saw everything. Why didn't you tell me where you were?" I smiled sadly. "Because just a few hours ago, you told me exactly where I wasn't supposed to be." Silence on the other end. Then I heard her start to cry. Not a performance, but the kind of crying that comes from someone who has just understood something far too late. Minutes later, another call came in. My ex-husband, simply asking if I was okay. Later, Ivan called too, trying to explain it had all been a misunderstanding. I didn't argue with either of them. I no longer had the energy to explain what was already painfully clear. The next morning, I woke to dozens of messages, neighbors, former co-workers, people I'd never even met, all talking about the rescue. But that afternoon, something happened I never expected. Daniela texted me. "Mom, I found the album. I read the last page." A lump rose in my throat as I remembered exactly what I had written before wrapping that gift. "No matter where we spend Christmas, you will always be my daughter, and there will always be a place for you in my heart." A few minutes later, she wrote again, "Can we talk?" I didn't answer right away, not out of pride, but because I needed time. For the first time in years, I understood that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting instantly. Wounds need silence too, before they can begin to heal. I turned off my phone and looked out the window. The snow was still falling, slow and steady. I thought about all the people who, because of that night, made it home to their families. And I understood something I had never fully grasped before. Some people only recognize your worth once the rest of the world starts to see it too. But respect should never depend on a headline, a viral video, or applause from strangers. It should exist long before the cameras ever arrive. That Christmas, I didn't get back the seat I had lost. I got back something far more valuable: my dignity. And from that day forward, I made myself one promise. I would never again beg for a place at the table of someone who had forgotten everything I once did for love.